Come on. Probably gonna last.
Good.
What's today?
Today's Monday, the 15th, May 15th, or it's Monday, May 15th, I apologize. Call the work session to order. Any questions before we get into the 5-year plan on tonight's agenda items? No questions for tonight's agendas, items? Nothing? No. Okay. Where's Richard Joe? Here. Better up.
Which one you want up first?
Well, firstly, this doesn't, I don't think this is missing a signature sheet. I think you want us to just sign on the. There's no lines for signature. That's okay.
We just sign it.
That's cool. All right. Oh, you got those, right?
Cool.
Okay.
We need to, we need to turn lights out or something. Cool.
It's been updated. Since the last Thursday night. And what I changed was the debt service and the water and sewer, and I put in MLB's. Projections for what they're going to spend for equipment, if you can go that on Facebook. Yeah, we put in these numbers for their equipment purchases, Bill Tracy gave it to me. And he also added 500,000 to contract services, 26, and then he put together debt service numbers, which if you go down, I put them together here. We spend $19.5 million on capital projects between 26 and 30. And so this will be the debt service by the years for these different projects. And, you know, certain fields are adding to the debt service up above, which case you can roll back up to that. They move here. These three figures are updated for us. There wouldn't be any debt service in these years because the debt service wouldn't take place at that.
Bill 28? Is that what you're, okay.
Or actually, I like this field for me, if you don't mind. No, it's got, excuse me, it's got some updates for 27.
27, yeah.
27. I don't know why these three show this marker and this one doesn't, because that should be different too than this cell. Oh, that one's got one too. Anyway, it's affecting all of them.
Okay.
So what Councilor Gibbs wanted to do was see about the debt service for the general fund.
Mhm.
So can you go over to the capital expenditure plan? So the first page doesn't affect the general fund. This is, you know, the water filtration plant, and it's also the water pollution control plan. The next page,
They have grants, right, for most of that work?
yes and no.
Yes and no, yeah.
Some low interest and no interest loans and
Okay.
combination.
Yep.
And some use of their capital reserves.
Yeah.
So when you get to the page where we start with streets, we have to decide on certain things. Now, most of these projects
Well, don't pull any of mine.
are funded by CHIPS.
Yeah.
Once they are funded by CHIPS, we have to decide whether we spend the money and where and when we're going to spend it. So I address debt service. Because that'll add to the general fund's operating costs. That's the last thing that we have to do with this before we say, okay, here's the final product you can look at and say whatever you want to change. So, first one on the list is Oak Street Safe Routes to School. Is that 800,000 going to be spent in 25 or 26?
We're starting the design now. I'm waiting for the contract to come through from the consultant for design work. And then hopefully we'll be going to construction in 2026.
26. So we would be borrowing this amount of money until the end of 26 after we spent it. So that would affect 27. So let's go back over to the other page. Go down to the debt service. All right, so we need to add. Good. Yeah, we need to add that one on 27. Let's put 800,000 in there. Let's see how well this works.
Does it matter if you put your reimbursement?
Yes, it does. So that means it's only 400,000,
Yes,
so
I
400,000.
was just gonna,
Let's get,
I was just about ready to ask them,
Yeah.
because I know it was 50.
Okay,
And
so good. All right, let's go back. So this is
I
the
can't
page
see
that you can broadcast. One page to the next and decide what we're gonna do. So we can improve the debt service numbers, or not really improve them, but update them. So 3.5 million on. What's that, Fort and Brinkerhoff Street multi-use pedestrian path. Hey,
right now, it's looking like that project wouldn't go into a building stage until 2027, 2028.
so DEC / general fund, that means that's a grant from the DEC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which split is that? What's the
Yeah.
split on that?
50/50.
That's a 50/50, but we
So would that-
also would be including some infrastructure upgrades underneath the road, so,
The reason we want to
right,
have it happen later on, closer to the end of the grant term, is because we're looking to address a water line and a potential combined sewer. Or combined sewer line under those streets, so instead of doing something on the surface and then having to tear it back up again when we need to replace, we're trying to sequence all of these
Right.
upgrades.
and we need a trunk line in Center City to mitigate,
Thank you.
stormwater.
So-
out of
And
the
that's
sewer.
chips or DEC.
Well, that's not gonna then come out of all, I'm sorry, but that
Right.
won't all come out of general fund then, right?
No,
So that's,
no, by no way, it's at least 50% grant, but it's probably gonna be more, because some of that's gonna come out of sewer reserves. That's gonna be complicated,
So we don't.
just to give you, just to make it so their projection is fair.
And we don't have the full project estimate. on
Correct.
it. We only have the surface estimate for the multi-use pathways. We'll have to have additional design work for the subterranean, so that remains to be seen and is being coordinated.
so what's the 3,450,000 figure representing? What's that?
What's the 3.4 represent?
3,450,000, what's it represent?
That's the total project cost, including what the grant is covering, as well as what the city will be covering for surface upgrades to create multi-use pathways.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's 50% funded,
Yes.
and won't take place until 27 or 28.
So I think what we're trying to point out is that what we just mentioned about the water main and the trunk lines, those are costs that are not included in that figure that you're seeing.
Good, so this is just general fund then.
But would those costs be covered by chips or DEC? We don't know.
We're looking
Not sure.
into, so we're looking
Half at
into
best.
potentially the water line being covered by.
Sewer,
More,
yeah, water and sewer funds.
and then the trunk potentially a grand,
Sewer,
undetermined at this time.
You're not talking
Yeah.
about anything that's in that number.
right
Yeah.
now.
Okay, it's general fund then.
Yeah, and
Let's
then,
go back,
and that's a 50/50.
gotcha, let's go back to the other schedule,
Okay, so
and we'll put it in 28. Put in the 3,450,000 and divide it by 2. And what we're gonna have to do is actually extend these down by dividing them by the life
Right.
of that debt
right.
through these.
Right, and some of that's gonna come out of touring money and chips money too. Correct?
Didn't say that.
Yeah, some of it is gonna come out of those funds,
Oh, that didn't say that.
right? It will be coming, I'm telling you, it will be, some of it will be coming out of the touring money to redo the road, whatever road costs that we do, and we can. We
So
can
how do we find that out? How much?
Well, Mike and Andrew are not here.
So you don't know about the chips at all.
The chips and the touring money are gonna pay for some of that.
Are you saying that the chips in the spring will cover some of the cities?
The pavement, right, our paving.
Since the paving.
Repaving.
Yeah.
3 million, is that more? Right? Paving costs 3,450,000.
Yeah, I guess what I'd have to do is I'd have to open up. I could look more closely at the exact project budget breakdown, which they would provide more detailed breakdown and be able to pull some of the numbers out. I can do that.
See, this is the hard part about
That's-
trying to forecast what you're gonna spend.
Right.
especially
Exactly.
with
We can be-
its impact,
Well-
but we don't know what we're doing with these projects.
Right.
So we might have to gather more information on this to finish.
You need to use the mayor's crystal ball.
Yeah, my crystal
How
ball.
are you gonna know?
Okay, all right, the next one, 495,000 is Broad Street restriping. I don't even think that should be a capital project if it's just striping.
And that project has been indefinitely tabled.
But if it's striping, it shouldn't even be on. It's not capital spending, it's operation costs.
Sure.
So,
Can we zero that out?
all right, what's the next one here?
Can you zero it out? If it's not,
Infrastructure,
We won't have.
Like,
complete streets implementation.
like infrastructure is too.
So this is a catch-all category for things like the Cumberland and Cumberland intersections, design study and proposed upgrades.
Was there a phase one with this?
Bike friendly Plattsburgh plan has 3 phases associated with it, and the first phase is nearly been fully completed, and what hasn't been completed got shifted to phase 2.
But it's the
So-
capital project, it's the capital spending. Phase one.
Um,
I don't remember seeing phase one, in case he has the same question, where was the phase one?
Phase 1 was a lighter lift that we didn't necessarily have to enter into capital projects, and was split between multiple other projects.
But these numbers are gonna represent capital spending on infrastructure, right? Okay,
Yeah, and we don't have concrete projects in place for this right yet, but anticipated projects through time.
so when do you anticipate the first year for spending?
So for Cumberland, Cumberland Ave intersection with Margaret Street, Boynton, that could be as early as next, potentially next year, or let's say 2027.
So then the first 200,000 would be in 2027, or would it be 700,000? Or would it be 1,200,000? Because this is 25,
state, you may-
26, and
I would-
27.
I would put probably 100,000 to 2026, and then the rest of it to 2027. Because it could start halfway through 2026.
Okay. So 100,000 to 26. We'll have to get into dividing out those numbers, like I said, over the life of the assets. Most of this is all street work, so it's gonna be 15 years. That it's gonna be debt service. It's got 15 years life. Okay. And.
Unrealistic.
Okay. What's next? Once we do this and we amortize that, we'll be able to put the numbers in and give you semi-final project. Okay, miscellaneous paving is chips. These items are usually funded right directly from the general fund. For the miscellaneous spending on, I think, street borings and
Surveys.
sidewalk surveys and stuff. Okay, so we gotta go to the next. Area on the report. All right, Saranac River Trail, 2.5 million.
Yes.
How's that one gonna go?
We're hopefully gonna go to construction in the spring of next year.
Is that 50/50?
I think it's supposed to be a huge one. Yes. I don't have that documentation with me tonight.
But when do you spend?
Beginning next spring.
Okay, so let's put 500,000 in there, it's 26, or 27, rather, 27. Okay, good. All right, the next one is. City Hall stairs, we've already borrowed the money for that, that project's in process right now. Roof design. That's gonna come out of 3 separate funds, that'll be in fund transfer, and what's the next? Same thing, building.
Yep, building improvements.
This will be direct from the general fund. For the fire station bathrooms. One bathroom visit? Yeah, one bathroom renovation. So those will be borrowed. Does anybody know about the ADA transition plan? What? That's gonna be the last 250.
Up front, just for you.
What is it again? The ADA transition plan? Yeah, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's just last one.
That's for this building. I think that's only percent.
Second question? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in mind. Okay, so. Public service buildings, that's in progress. Okay, now here's some more. General fund impact, because recreation complex doesn't generate. The revenue that the general fund does, and this will probably be charged to general fund anyway.
The beach bathroom.
That's already in progress.
I was gonna say, yeah,
We're doing that one.
okay,
The last change order on the roof is through, so we're gonna be doing that, and I think that's gonna be funded all from the general fund and direct spending. That's what we're budgeting for. $1,022,000 for the dunes, beach dunes.
What,
that's this year, right?
Yeah, that's just, yeah, so that's we just awarded the contract for the first phase of design, that's for the dune restoration and green infrastructure improvements. That number you're seeing is the entire projected cost for the project, which includes design and the construction for implementation.
Okay,
So we will begin to draw down on that number, we'll begin paying out our consultant within the next couple months. So
That's
that's,
gonna be start this year.
Yeah.
When do you anticipate it's gonna be finished as far as the spending?
I think
Is it a 1-year project?
safe to say by 2026.
All right. So let's put that one in. 2027.
What is that grant? That's a grant too, though, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
How much, what is that split on that?
that's 50/50 as well.
That's a 50.
All right.
817,000.
By 2.
Here.
It was 1,022,000.
okay. Did I see that?
It's hard.
Yes, yep. Even if I don't have to sign, I'm gonna see.
Does that mean-
I think there's more down there.
Use 102.
This is the beach green infrastructure, right, Brittany?
Go.
From last meeting. literally.
All right. The next one is. USO Veterans Park improvements. That's DASNY.
Yeah. And that's a fully paid grant. So nothing would have to come out of the general fund, run out of this match.
All right.
And we're hopefully gonna go to construction about this fall. It should be a quick turnaround.
Yeah, beach plan implementation next. This is general fund.
So I think that's just put in, but, we haven't, I mean, we don't have any project right now contributed to that. I think that was put in.
So placeholder for possible something. All right, so we can say that we're not gonna include it. Okay, Sailors Beach.
So you're not gonna put the last one in at all?
So I think that like Rich Captain, it was put in, this was put in, it wasn't my proposal, but I would imagine after the beach plan implementation. Study was created, that this was probably proposed as a way to implement.
From that, okay, okay.
Parts of that beach plan.
Yep.
So far, we have the beach dune restoration project as the first part of implementing that plan, and we haven't acquired any other grant funding, or we haven't, committed to any other projects.
Okay, okay.
Okay. And Sailor's Beach, I think we started that.
It's out to bid.
It's awarded,
That's a 50 split.
But then it will be spent in 2025.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be right out of the general fund. But it's split, okay. Melissa, Penfield Park Playground, $1,350,000 and then $950,000.
so this is the one that I think again, we proposed that in the capital plan to cover the city's match requirement if we were awarded a grant that we had applied for in last year's CFA. We were not awarded that grant, but we did just apply for another grant,
Okay. Oh, I remember, yeah.
and we don't know whether we received that grant or not. I would propose keeping it, but it's not, we haven't been awarded a grant.
Do you have any idea when it might come through? When we could find out?
Last week, so.
Oh, so it'll, yeah.
And that's not part of anything we're doing with the ARPA funding currently.
Outside of, yeah.
Okay, next one, and I think that's the last one we're gonna deal with, is city parks and equipment and infrastructure site improvements.
Now, is this part of the park?
It's got a 3.1 million total figure, so that's above what we have. 6 projects, so that is.
This is really. After, once all of we did is this. Then that's. So then all of this comes straight out of. Yeah. But it's all proposed spending is on it.
That's the last one. We thought the list went out. Time to get details about the semester. Okay, is there any more cases? That's the summary.
Right.
That's it. Yes, go ahead.
Back to that, I was incorrect, the beach infrastructure is a G20 map. It's not a 50/50. So beach green infrastructure.
Yeah.
You mean this one?
Beach green restoration agreement, yeah,
Okay, so let's go back to our worksheet.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's always good to take.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
So what
it's
happened?
separate, yeah.
we're going the right way.
it's a different number?
So it's an 80/20, so the state is
Ooh,
covering.
I like
80%
that better.
and the city-
Awesome.
So let's go back and change that to times 0.2. So that's going to be looking like that for getting to capital projects. Anything else on the list that you think we should include?
Or exclude.
There may be some exclusions,
Well, we left some things off.
right, there may be some more too, you know, not knowing what we don't know. Staying conservative with it, I think this is fair.
So we can update the numbers. What I did with on that worksheet was just to include 100,000 just for the hell of it for each year, but change that so that we came in with the numbers that we had and take it more the right of the assets, the affected debt service. And those numbers in each years, the total interest. Go back down. Total debt service will be over here, or once you adjust those numbers, and this will be exactly how the debt service will be amortized on the bonds. And they're fixing those ones throughout there. And I'm assuming reading the numbers separately, because that's what the bond are concerned. We won't know. So, right, that's the change that last year. So if we wanted to look at the numbers that are on there. I know that I wrote an email about the $1 million deficit.
Yeah.
Concerned about. We start with the general fund as it is now, without debt service updates. And we do have some deficits. And the plan there, if we go down just a little bit. Will leave us with available fund balance from this figure, 7.6 million.
Mhm.
It'll be factored down to this figure by 2030. With those deficits.
With those deficits in mind, you said that?
They're in there. Those deficits are gonna change with additional debt service. Including what the next version is done to. Will be what we think is the final one. And it will show. The deficits for the general fund for the next 5 years.
Okay.
Rec complex. Not much going on with this, then it's showing deficits in 26. And then it's out to 2030, it's got some surplus going. Parking. Parking's also similar to that. That'll be shakes with the numbers. There's no deficits. And water and sewer, like I said, I updated from last time for that service. So we do have some deficits going on there, but if you look at their fund balance step here. Yeah, that's not good.
I was, gonna-
So that's gonna happen.
by then, it's a pretty big number,
That might require some more rating.
assuming I'm seeing it.
It might require what? Sorry.
Rate increases.
Rate? Oh, I see.
Sewer,
Right now, the water fund is a lot lower than the sewer fund.
Is a lot lower?
Yeah. A lot.
sewer fund has a fairly decent fund balance, but it's enough to in the next 5 years. Now, we do have a significant reserve in there, we're spending on the capital projects. So we always transfer back. We're gonna take, excuse me, only this going into a deficit situation from the reserve balance that we've set aside. Because there is capital spending here affecting the operating funds, so the reserve could be used to pay for that by transferring it back into the operating fund. We put about $2 million a year away
Mhm.
in sewer reserve each year. Not so much for surplusing, but our revenue versus our expenses. And we'll be looking at doing that again this year. But once again, that just serves to change this number. It doesn't do anything to increase the unrestricted fund balance. It actually reduces that, it's transferred into a different. So we can transfer that.
Okay,
Library. And a little bit more. Please. Libraries funding is gonna be okay. Even though we have some deficits. Reserve positions. We have to check this, we'll have to look at these numbers and see how growth is generating that, because that's distorting these figures versus. So that's something we'll check and make sure we correct if we have. Okay. And NLD's numbers. With the projects, the $19.5 million projects. They're still gonna have a surplus. Through this period. Don't know what their revenue is gonna be, building change in revenue projections. I'm left them at just 2%. And that would just be for usage, that's not a rate change at all implied in there. I don't know if there's a question there for Bill about a rate change, because I know you were talking to me about someone there.
It was, yeah, Bill's gonna, we gotta replace Bill too. So there's gonna be, a lot of changes to the MLB, so. And those are proposed projects too, not guaranteed projects. We're doing.
So that was pretty quick, and like I said, we'll have to update the numbers for the general fund debt service, but does anybody have questions or concerns or something we need?
I'm good.
right now,
Yeah.
I'm good. Just for right now.
Enough crunching of numbers? We can do it all night.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think one time we did. Did you send it? And I apologize, I didn't look at the email. Great, yes, so this is what you sent us.
Yes.
Minus
I
the
can't
updates.
print that out at my house because it's. Thank you, that's what I'm struggling desperately to ask, okay,
The
awesome.
general fund one more time, now that we know kind of how this works. I just am curious. Just want to kind of scroll down and see where that is. Down a little bit more.
And these assumptions over here, these percentages that are affecting those numbers increasing year by year, those are assumptions
Okay,
for your price index between 2.5% and 3%. And if you go up to the top on the revenue, that's assuming that our assessments are going to go up 2% a year for the next 5 years. And everybody knows the assessments have been going up.
Yes, they have.
2% is not unreasonable to think about it, but when we look at the not the fund summary, but the next one, Casey, I think it's, yeah, levy and
Levy.
appointment. We keep our tax rate the same all the way through, but it still generates 2% more in revenue per year. And that's what's allowable under the tax levy factor. In order to go with a 2% on the levy increase, that's the actual dollars increase for the property taxes. There would have to be a super majority, or you have to say, yes, go over the 2%, and you have to have a good reason to do it too. You guys. That's not new information.
Yep.
We gotta take a look at the headcount projections too. So I think that we've got some pretty low numbers there, but we'll pull that together as well.
Yeah, I have. What's our infamous word, heartburn, about how can we project that? How do we know?
What's that?
Even the number of employees. I mean, I have a thing with the whole thing, how, I mean, you can project it all you want, it's not, how do we know?
Based on what we have now. And know that there's some vacancies that we're gonna fill, so that'll change the numbers as well. But you have a crystal ball, like the mayor does do test, how they say by 2030, we'll have 230 people now. It's best guess and that's. But we try to make sure that they're, reasonable and practical estimates, something that makes sense, not just crazy stuff off the wall. You want to look at the general fund more?
that's all right.
Sure.
I'll probably look at it again, but I'll have questions.
It's easier when it's on paper in front of you.
Yeah,
than
it is, I
up
agree.
there.
But it's nice to see you guys click through it. It's really useful to see how you guys roll through this.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
And Casey, thank you.
Good computer skills, Casey.
Sit out of the way.
Matt's always in the way.
Well, no, I have no consent.
Any other questions? For the department head?
Richard, I have a question on one of the PO. I just don't know what this is. It's for the fire department, but I'm looking, I mean, to me, that says IT stuff, right? Yeah. Is he here? Chief Lawless.
Usually e-services is like.
Yeah. That one, yeah.
You want to take a break?
Yeah.
It's.
I don't have any questions.
Nobody. Julie. Do you guys have any questions? We can take a break.
We can take, I'm just asking Chief Lawless about one of the POs.
Jim, do you have any questions? What's that? Do you have any questions?
No.
We can take a break.
We can- We can.
Oh, and it's, you've got got it. Okay, all right, got it, all right. Thank you. Okay. Perfect.
We'll be back.